Okay, we are now at as full a force as we're going to be tonight. We have one commissioner who is off in Pakistan and another commissioner who is down presenting an ANC protest of Lucky Buns. So the fact that they have hearings that start at 6:30 at night is pretty ridiculous, but anyway, I'll call the meeting to order for ANC 1C for the December meeting. And I'm Ted Guthrie, chair of ANC 1C, and I represent 1C03, which is 18th to 19th, Wyoming to Biltmore. And I'd ask my fellow commissioners to introduce themselves, starting at my far right.
John Zotoli, 1C04, which is in Lanier Heights.
1C02, Calorama Triangle.
Chaper Bowles, I'm 1C07 and I am the west side of the Reed Cook neighborhood.
I'm Michaela Wright, 1C06, the northeastern part of Adams Morgan.
Hello, I'm Damiana Dendy, 1C05, the northernmost ANC point.
And I would like to point out again that we are transmitting into the ether sphere, whatever, so that if you are making comments, please try to be articulate enough that people can understand you who are watching this remotely. And if you're concerned about being seen remotely, I don't know what you can do. It's a public meeting. It's a public meeting. Turning first to the chair's report, the only thing I have to say is that I would like to encourage everyone, both the people who are here and the people who are watching, to let the ANC know if there is a problem that you think needs to get addressed. We are not omnipresent. We don't know everything that's going on, and we had a particular example arise this month where immediate neighbors were able to give us information that was helpful in determining provisions regarding a proposed new development that needed to be addressed to take care of their concerns. But if we don't hear from you, we can't do anything about it, and we'll just rubber stamp what other people want to do. So let us know if you see a problem. We may not be able to fix it, but give us a shot. Turning to Secretary's report.
So tonight, we've got minutes from last month, so I'd like to make a motion to consider minutes. Do we have any comments, questions at all?
We
No?
need a second. We need a second.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. All right, well then we can move forward to a vote. All those in favor indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, thank you. And then the other item I have tonight is the ANC 1C annual report, which is a really pretty looking document thanks to Bridget's wizardry skills. This report is part of a new requirement from the Office of ANCs, and it's basically a summary of all the stuff we've done this year. And do I need to make a motion to put this on the table because it was not, I don't think I put it on my last update.
If it wasn't noticed, then we probably should have a preliminary motion just to make sure.
Okay.
So a motion to put it on the table.
Yeah, so I'll do a preliminary motion to put this on the table for consideration, and it was due at the end of November, but this is just to kind of ratify it, I guess. Do I have a second?
Second?
Great. Yeah, so it's just a summary of what we've done. We have some general updates talking about some of the tech improvements that we've had. And then we have thematic sections on what each of the committees have done, what we've done on transportation and Vision Zero, the construction and permits that we've voted on, and then other sections like parks and then education and district-wide matters.
Has this been linked, put on the website yet?
So, I don't know if it's on the website yet, but People can access it at bit.ly/2019 annual report -ANC1C, and then it will go on the website.
Okay,
as well.
great,
I think we wanted to approve it tonight.
yeah, okay. Yeah, and I must say, I'm very impressed with the work that the two of you did on it. It's a beautiful job, especially for something that's a new requirement, and I think it will help people understand all that we do, or the scope of, at least, of what we do.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
It's quite long and it has a lot of photos, so we only printed a couple copies. So happy to pass it around if anybody wants to take a look at everything we've done this year.
I will say, it does look really pretty, but I also really like the content in it as well. We did a lot of good work this year, and I'm excited to see what next year's will look like as well, so. Good
Great.
job.
Any other comments? Okay, move to a vote then.
You didn't vote to add it to the agenda.
No, she did move it to add it to the agenda.
got
We
a
didn't get a
second.
vote on
I had
the
a second,
preliminary.
and then, okay.
We need to have a preliminary vote.
So all those in favor of adding it to the agenda indicate so by saying aye.
Aye?
Any abstentions? Or opposed, abstentions, okay? And then can we just move to a vote then?
Yeah, we need a motion to approve the annual report.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the annual report for 2019.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. That's it for me.
Moving to treasurer's report?
Sure, and I have no business.
Great. Moving then to commissioner announcements and committee meeting agendas for the chairs of the respective committees. Let's start with Damiana this time.
Okay, I don't have anything to report from my ANC.
Okay?
I don't either.
And the only thing I have is to thank, I assume, the bid for dressing up what I think of as the Festivus pole at the corner of 18th and Columbia. It looks prettier than I have ever seen it. Whoever did it was a great job. It doesn't look nearly as forlorn as it regularly looks.
That's the bar we're aiming for.
Right about tapping.
Any announcements?
Yes, so for public services, or, for Public Services and the Environment Committee, I don't believe have received any grant applications, so we won't be discussing anything in that aspect. However, I believe that we have a joint meeting,
Yes.
and that would relate to the comp plan. Normally, we think of comp plan as just housing, but there's 11 elements. Including jurisdiction that Public Services and Environment will typically cover. So we'll be discussing that, and as well as the greater comp plan proposals. On a personal note, I will be submitting a resolution in coordination with DDOT to add scooter corrals. There is a proposal that we'll make public and add on the website, but essentially it's to help make the intersections better, because there's not going to be illegal cars there. They're essentially removing 2 spots that are technically legal, and then putting the corrals in spots where illegal parking would normally be. So the 2 hotspot areas, there's 2 pretty much intersections. One is the crosswalk next to Ace Hardware. It's difficult for pedestrians to see oncoming traffic if you're on the northern side of Columbia and walking southbound on the crosswalk. So they're putting a corral there. And then pretty much the entire intersection of Champlain and Columbia is going to have some sort of scooter corral, pedestrian bump out zone. So right where the hawk signal is, that's where there's going to be more visibility, pedestrian visibility efforts in that area. So I will be drafting a resolution in support of their proposal, and I will also be bringing up the U Street, Florida and 18th Street resolution again, and that one for consideration.
Okay, now those two are both part of the PZT agenda though?
Correct. Yeah, on a personal note.
Okay.
I'll be sponsoring. And that is all on a personal note.
And I'd point out that unlike most months, the December Public Services Environment Committee is going to be a joint committee session with the ABC and Public Safety Committee on the 11th, rather than what would be Christmas week, because that's not going to work. So we'll have a joint meeting in which there'll be the police officers will be there to report, and then we'll go into the Public Service and Environment Committee.
Yeah, that's right. So apologies for the confusion there.
And I'd also note that, since Amanda isn't here, there will be the following items on the Planning, Zoning, Transportation Committee, and that will be Wednesday the 18th. Request by Rock and Roll Marathon for approval of 2020 race. ANC 1C comments on the comprehensive plan, and again the scooter corrals and the U Street, what else did you call it?
U Street, Florida 18th Street intersection.
Florida 18th intersection.
Traffic study.
And that will be the 18th. Moving on.
The only thing I wanted to mention is I wanted to recognize Commissioner Bowles for his work. He, with a couple other leaders in the community, organized a really wonderful networking opportunity on Monday for LGBT elected officials in DC. We had great representation. A couple council members came out, representation from almost every council member office. Really inspiring, and I'm just very proud of your leadership.
Thanks.
That's all I got.
I'd like to raise a public safety issue. At the Marie Reed soccer field, there have been some concerns raised. Soccer players will come and leave their things by the soccer field. Been complaints about young boys, is what the complaint said, would take things that the soccer players had left by the field. More recently, there was an issue where somebody brandished a knife on the field. And most recently, there was a shooting, a gunfire, either on the soccer field or nearby. Someone was apprehended related to that incident. The police recommended that we consider a community impact statement, which is a way of saying to the court, hey, we're concerned about this. And another side issue, the Metropolitan Police Department 3rd District agreed to talk with the Department of Parks and Recreation about their use of security cameras on the field. All of this is percolating, but I think it's worth the community knowing. Thank you.
And if you have further information to let the ANC know about other instances or problems, please get a hold of one of them or others.
It'd probably be discussed at the joint meeting as well.
Do we have anyone from Office of Planning here? Yeah, okay. We'll move then to, we have a special presentation about the DC Comprehensive Plan from the Office of Planning. They had a Ward 1 meeting last month that was in opposition to our monthly meeting, so they didn't get a chance to present to ANC 1C folks.
Good evening. My name is Evelyn Casongo, and as mentioned, I work for the Office of Planning. I'm the Ward 1 and the Ward 5 planner, and I'm here this evening to give a brief presentation on the comprehensive plan and answer any questions associated with that afterwards. The agenda you see here is the presentation that we've been giving at all of the meetings that we've been holding in each of the wards. So the gallery walk and the discussion and exit surveys will not be given or presented here tonight. So the comprehensive plan is required as part of the Home Rule Act, and has two components. The federal component of the National Capital Planning Commission, and also the district element in which the Office of Planning develops, and which helps guide policies across the district. The comp plan is not zoning, and zoning is under the purview of the independent zoning committee. The comprehensive plan was written in 2006 and amended in 2011. Given how our city has changed in that time, now is the reason that we are amending the comprehensive plan in consideration of the challenges and the opportunities, including housing, equity, resilience, and public resources. The comp plan is a high-level guiding document that sets a positive long-term vision for the district through the lens of its physical growth and change. It establishes a vision and broad goals to help inform decision-making and provide context for residents, officials, and stakeholders, and can help guide and inform more fine-grained planning efforts. There are 25 elements or chapters in the comprehensive plan. As you may know, the first element, the framework, was introduced to Council in January of this year, and it had its first reading in July and approved by Council on October the 8th. So the framework is a foundational element of the comp plan, and through analysis of data and forces driving change, it sets the context for the rest of the plan. Council approved the framework on October 8th, and it was a critical component for the Office of Planning to move forward in the amendment process. It has also helped surface the major concerns and issues that residents and council members would like the comp plan to address. Now, as you can see here, the remaining elements are divided into citywide elements like housing, arts, and culture, and transportation, and then 10 area elements, mid-city being the element that we're in here for today. And while planning areas are similar to wards, we do not use wards because they change every 10 years with the census. Planning areas allow us the opportunity to grow similar neighborhoods together. As you see here, we have what we call the generalized policy map and the future land use map. The general policy map provides broad policy guidance for decision makers, whereas the future land use map, or the FLUM is what we refer to it as, is divided into land use categories from high to low and across commercial, residential, and industrial uses. It's of interest to anyone who wants to build anything in the district, as zoning must be in alignment with the land use. But again, to note, the future land use is not a zoning map. This comp plan was passed originally in 2006, and it had a minor update in 2012. The Office of Planning conducted a lot of comprehensive engagement starting in the fall of 2016. And during the 3-month open call period, we hosted 7 town hall meetings, over 100 hours at convenient community-based locations across all 8 wards. We received over 3,000 amendments during the open call period, reflecting a diverse mix of ANCs, individual residents, and civic organizations. We also coordinated with over 40 district agencies and federal partners to review current policies, provide updated data, and to draft new policies and actions. We started our second and final update in 2016, thinking that we would receive about the same level of interest as in 2012, where we received 300 proposed amendments. However, thanks in part to a lot of our outreach efforts, as well as major changes in the city, we had the open call and received over 3,000 proposals. This is one reason the process has taken longer than expected, and also while the framework was moved prior to the release of the remaining elements. With paper and online surveys, the Office of Planning met residents at 14 community events from May to the end of June and heard over 3,000 residents. Residents agreed that these are the right values. And although there was general agreement among all the values, residents indicated that livability, safety, and equity were the top 3 values that they wanted to see incorporated within the comprehensive plan. Livability means that no matter where you are in the city, you have access to adequate parks and open spaces, access to healthy food options, and well-designed urban spaces. Safety extends far beyond reduced crime and improved emergency response systems. It also addresses our infrastructure, including innovative waste management systems and clean drinking water. Equity: in order to achieve equitable outcomes for all residents, we need to be vigilant in targeting and prioritizing resources to communities that need them the most. These values align with the comp plan's 5 major themes and guiding principles, and we've amended the introduction element to incorporate our survey findings. We have used these priority values as a guide for leading significant change in this amendment cycle. As we release the draft plan, we know that the city will change. And the role of the comprehensive plan is to manage that change to help us move forward a positive future, not only for today's residents, but for our children and their children. Overall, this draft comp plan has 4 major themes: housing, equity, resilience, and public resources. What we did during this amendment process, we reduced contradictory language. We amended language to make it more specific in the neighborhood in which it appeared. And in addition, we've incorporated over 40 plans and updated data and policies within this update. For the housing, we've incorporated the mayor's bold new goal to produce 36,000 new units, of which 12,000 will be affordable by 2025. For equity, we've added an equity crosswalk that highlights policy and actions related to equity, introducing racial equity as well. We've highlighted social determinants of health, results from the Health Equity Report released by the DC Health, and it connects the life expectancy of residents to where you live in the city. For resilience, thinking about the long-term viability of the city, we've added a resilience crosswalk that ties the Resilience DC plan to the comprehensive plan. We've also addressed shocks and stressors, both man and natural, and addressed that throughout the draft comp plan. For public resources, we've added additional guidance on how best to use our infrastructure to address the needs of our residents. We added a public life section to address opportunities for not only using our streets to move cars, but also how the public realm can be a place of vibrancy for our residents. And we've added the civic infrastructure policy to address how we can coordinate our master facilities plans across parks, schools, and etc. For the generalized policy map, we added potential areas in the city in which further area-based planning needs to take place and implemented over the next 5 years. We also added resilience-focused areas, which generally align with the 500-year plain boundary and should inform decision makers that further emphasis on resilience should be considered when planning or developing a project. The proposed state of Washington Douglas Commonwealth borders are also highlighted. And while the future land use map has land use designation, it is critical to note that the FLUM is not zoning. Once land use changes are approved in the FLUM through an enactment by council, there are additional processes that landowners must go through with the zoning commission in order to modify the zoning that they have today. Of the almost 200 amended proposals received, the Office of Planning accepted almost half of the proposals and incorporated those updates in the draft comprehensive plan and the future land use map proposed amendments. Changes approximately 3% of land area and creates 15% more capacity for housing. For the public review period in which we're currently in now, this public review period is different from public comment periods such as the one that we held in 2016. This public review period is also different from a regulatory public comment period because our proposal is not a final action, as council will have a chance to weigh in and hold a public hearing. We are providing a public review period of 67 days to accommodate review from October 15th through December 20th. We are defining our public review period as ANC-centric, using a great weight approach to prioritize ANC feedback during this public review period by providing 108 days, October 15th through January 31st, for ANCs to meet with their constituents and submit official actions or resolutions. The Office of Planning will commit to respond to ANC official actions. To assist with this approach, we've provided 2 ANC trainings and will provide individual technical support so that ANCs can be prepared. We are also providing 8 ward meetings throughout the city to offer more information on proposed changes to the draft comprehensive plan. And as you can see here, this is kind of the timeline in the period in which we've undertaken this whole process here. And again, the ANCs have until January 31st to submit resolutions to the Office of Planning, in which then we will then review them and package the whole process to council for their final action. And that's it. Any questions?
Thanks for coming out tonight. Sure. In Adams Morgan, does the plan anticipate any changes in density?
I would have to look at the future land use map and see what submissions were provided then, but I don't think that there's a lot of changes from in Adams Morgan, from my immediate.
So looking at the flume, the only change that I saw was the 3D police headquarter change. So from what I've seen, nothing on the flume says that within any of 1C is any change in that.
Yeah.
So I can't probably answer your question, but there is plandc.gov that it's right there. That one's pretty easy to find.
Right, plandc.dc.gov.
Yeah. So. I definitely have some questions though.
Sure.
Okay, so they have chapter elements, and I'm reading the chapter elements here.
The area elements.
The area elements.
Yes.
So chapter 20 is mid-city area, or mid-city element. But there's also like a larger document that has like the red lines and the underlining and the bolds. So my question, it seems like a summarized document. Obviously there's not all types of crazy formats and formatting in this document as there is to that one. My question is when comparing those two documents, there's like whole elements that are missed. And I can provide examples for those, but one of the biggest example, and how I even came across this, is that we have the Adams Morgan Vision Framework Plan that this community has gotten a lot of feedback from.
Right.
And that's actually one of the new elements in the draft plan that's not mentioned in this area element plan. And so my concern is like we want to endorse that framework.
Absolutely.
It was like all the things we want in the neighborhood. And this area element, there's a lot of really good things, but it's not as specific as the framework, which was endorsed and is in this plan, but isn't in the material that's being handed out.
The Adams Morgan framework.
The Adams Morgan Vision Framework.
You're saying it's not referenced within the mid-city area?
It's not.
Okay.
And I guess that's a bigger question. There's policy items in here, and there's also action items in here. What can we, some of them say like completed. So in this document, it mentions the Marie H. Reed Community Learning Center. And it says, continue the community dialogue to reuse the community learning center. Well, that already happened. The dialogue happened. So in the big text red line document, that will say completed. See implementation. Where could I find that?
The implementation framework?
Yeah, or implementation framework table. It says something with a table.
That is included in the framework plan itself.
Okay. Because I was having difficulties with that, and I know others were as well.
And we also noticed like some of the things that were marked as complete in the implementation framework are like out of date by now. So for example, Schaefer mentioned we spent, I don't know, two hours standing down at the intersection of 18th and Florida and because it's a disaster.
Right.
But in the implementation framework, it says it's completed.
Okay. So I think that should have been obsolete then, because that was also an option too, to just say obsolete.
Oh,
so,
okay.
do you want us to be like, hey, this doesn't look right, we're scanning through, like, we live in the neighborhood, you should change this language, it's either outdated, is that the type of stuff you're looking for?
That's the extent of what we're looking for. Being as specific as possible. I mean, I know it's time consuming, but we really want a great level of specificity just for us to know that this needs to be changed, this needs to be updated.
Okay.
Yes.
So, referencing the Adams Morgan Vision Framework Plan, there's numerous elements within that. Would that be something that we could say, hey, not only should you support 2.7 in the action plan, but you should more specifically look at these goals in that vision
Add
plan?
these specific goals.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
cool.
To make it applicable to this mid-city area element, yes. Now, are you saying these goals are within the Adams Morgan framework plan?
Yeah.
That need, okay.
And so like the action 2.7 just says implement the Adams Morgan Vision Framework.
Okay,
And I mean, that's all it says.
Right.
And I'm like, we're doing some good stuff there. That's
let's
great.
call out what, yeah.
But also the concern is it's literally not in this document. And this is the one that everyone turns to. And that's like one of the most comprehensive. And like we have a neighborhood association that wants to use that document to endorse their
Absolutely.
amendments.
I find that kind of,
Crazy, right?
yeah, I would have thought that would
I did too, and I'm so here for you guys, and like so here for this plan. So thanks for coming. I'm really glad that you didn't come to every ANC. This
No.
was a Ward 1 Ward 1 meeting.
Comp plan.
Yeah,
So we're
comp plan
doing this in
meeting.
each of the
You guys came separately to see us, so I
Yes.
appreciate that.
You're welcome. And the next meeting is Saturday in Ward 5, but again, it will cover the exact same material.
Yeah, cool. That's all my questions, and otherwise, we'll be having continued dialogue at our committee meetings, and for the community, I guess, feel free to continue to email me if you have questions. I'm writing stuff, I know other commissioners are as well, and we'll be discussing at the committees, so.
So the timeline for, also just because I think the
Oh, yeah,
timeline
that's
is
what I was
confusing and I get questions from the same person every day about it, is we will talk about it at the Planning, Zoning, and Transportation Committee meeting on December 18th, and then the ANC will vote on it at our January meeting, which is just January 8th.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that we meet the deadline.
Okay, great. Any questions?
Okay, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Turning into public announcements. Ask folks to limit themselves, if possible, to 2 minutes a person. You've got public announcements. Yes.
Hey, good evening, I'm Matt Wexler. Nice to hear everyone again. I wanted just to highlight over the coming couple of months, I'll be returning to the commission as well as to committees to discuss a special exception that we're going to be applying for, which I've previewed with a few of the members of the commission over the last number of months, as it relates to the second phase of our Admiral Heights project. On that note, in just a couple of weeks, Core Power as well as Revelers Hour will be opening to create amenities for the community. We were fortunate enough to build a significant amount of parking in the first phase of development of the project, and that parking is still really heavily underutilized. So what we're going to be proposing to the community and ultimately speaking with members here and elsewhere over the coming couple of months is how do we utilize that parking for the next phase as well. So next month I'm going to have call it Build a House, so we can share some ideas and have a dialogue and discussion about ways that maybe we can also improve some of the traffic flow around Columbia and 18th, and in particular the alley behind the properties there, which we've been discussing over the years, but really haven't quite implemented any changes. And I know there's a variety of ideas as to how we can make that better. So I think this would be a good opportunity to kind of get some of that just on the table. So happy to speak with any of you over the coming months as we embark on phase 2. Did you mention a date for this? It'll be after the holidays.
Yeah.
I have less of an announcement and more of a question, if that's all right.
Sure.
I was curious, it was great to hear about all the work that's going into change the intersection of Florida and 18. I was curious if there's, in looking at this, and I haven't had a chance to look at the full comprehensive plan yet, about the ANC's thoughts and what the comprehensive plan says about the intersection of Harvard and 6th and pedestrian safety improvements that could be made there with crosswalks, etc., especially at Argonne and Harvard.
I'm not sure what the comp plan will say about that in particular, but I do know that that area between Harvard and Columbia is in the 10-year plan for DDOT to totally figure out how to make the traffic work better because everybody knows it doesn't. It's not quite as bad as some of the other intersections, but it's certainly confusing, and there's some dangers there that you don't see otherwise that will be done as a separate process as they try to figure out how to rework the patterns for all different folks who are using different modalities of transportation, because it really is, I agree, it's a mess.
Can I add something to that? That part of the, of 16th Street is also part of where the new 16th Street bus lanes are gonna be going. And so I can't remember when the next community meeting is about that, but I think it's coming up soon. There's something happening soon, maybe. And so.
But the 16th Street bus lane is at about 90% design.
Yeah.
And they said they're going to have the complete design done by the end of the year, and construction scheduled to start late spring or summer.
Okay.
So, and I've looked at the initial plans, and it shapes back a little bit on the intersection where all the islands are. It doesn't drastically change the flow, except that there's a bus lane.
Can we post those plans on the website? We could find them and post them.
That would be fun.
Yeah, okay.
Good idea.
Yeah, I can do that.
Does that sort of answer the question?
Yeah, it would be great to see the plans. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Ben Sisson. I live at 17th Lanier, and I'm a bar owner. I have a couple bars over on 14th Street, and we're looking at one in the old Southern Hospitality space. At least, and going forward, what we're looking to do is a sports bar that has sports gambling. I know it's really new, and there's a lot of people who already have opinions about it. I'd like to sort of speak with anybody who's here, or otherwise at the next meeting, to come and sort of dispel sort of fact from fiction and see if we can get everyone excited about us coming to town.
Well, I think that you'll find the first item on the business agenda has to do with that, so.
Yeah, that's not me.
I know it's not you.
We'll see how it goes.
Anyone else? Yeah.
Hi everybody, I'm Allie. I'm the District Services Coordinator with Councilmember Brianna Doe. I just have one announcement, which is that on Wednesday, December 18th at Tango Gelato, the council member is having her Brianna on their block. So these are open office hours between 6:30 and 8, where you can just come and talk to her about anything that you would like. I left some of my cards in the back. It's just easier if you know you're going to come. It's just easier if you email me ahead of time so we can kind of make sure that we're ready to answer your questions. We've also invited DCRA to be with us, so we're pretty sure that somebody from DCRA is going to be there. So it's specifically if you have DCRA questions, it might be a really great time to come and get some of those things answered.
And that's 6:30 till 8?
Yes, so it's Wednesday, December 18th. I'll email all of the commissioners as well. From 6:30 to 8 at Pitango Gelato, which is at 1841 Columbia Road Northwest.
Which kind of conflicts with the PCT meetings for those of us who aren't going to PCT meetings.
Yeah, this December was a little bit tough. We do these every single month, so if it's hard to come to those, I can definitely find another time. Also, if you ever do want to speak to the council member or hear from our office, you can also always reach out to me. It's just one public hour, but yeah, sorry about that.
Any other public announcements? Anything from the mayor?
Hi everyone. My name is Ruben Foreman. I'm with the Mayor's Office of Community Relations and Services. I just have 3 events to talk about. Happy holidays or happy holiday season on behalf of the Mayor's Office. The Wilson Building tree lighting ceremony will happen December 9th at 5 p.m. at the Wilson Building. Another fun event coming up, I hope everyone will see me out there, is the 6th annual Fit DC Fresh Start 5K run, which happens the last 6 years. This year it'll be at Anacostia Recreation Center, 1800 Anacostia Drive Southeast. It's a really fun event. It happens every year. Great way to start the new year. There will be a roll-off day in Ward 1 coming up. So roll-off day is one of the days where you can bring your bulk items, and they will be collected by the Mayor's Office of Clean City. It's going to be at Bruce Monroe Community Park, which is the 3000 block of Georgia Avenue Northwest, and that'll be from 12 to 2, Saturday, December 14th. I also have some flyers in the back. I'm getting some in Spanish. I'm going to try to bring them to local community meetings next couple days. Still getting them. And I have some straws and hats if anyone wants some.
Straws.
Yes, there's not many though.
So the bulk materials it does not include like shredding services or electrical or the sort of dangerous disposal stuff. It's just bulk items.
There's a list of items that can come out. I can happily pass that out. I don't have 100% on exactly what you can do, but usually I've seen it as it's just like bulk furniture items.
Right.
You can tell me all that.
Okay. And do we have any progress on what is going on with Christmas trees after Christmas?
Yeah.
Yes. It's a big, DPW will have collection days and they will post a policy about what they do and how they collect trees. I know last year there was some issue on communication and having some trees just weren't picked up. How we did in the past is people would try to just text me or call me and I would tell DPW. Hopefully there'll be a better system this year. I can't promise anything, but I am always willing to be that point of contact to get a Christmas tree removed.
Well, the area that I was primarily interested in is my understanding is that Public Works only is supposed to be picking up those trees of people who are in 3 units or less buildings. And that the general population does not understand that, and for years and years and years, everyone put their stuff out at the curb.
Yeah.
Now, DPW last year said, put it back with your trash, wherever that is. If that's at the curb, fine, but if it's not, back where the trash is, and everyone still put stuff out by the curb, which led to mountains of stuff that got hauled down to 18th, where we had, barriers and, it looked like Les Miserables. And what I want to find out is how loud the mayor's office is going to be about what the proper procedure is so that people understand what they need to do and that the haulers for large buildings or medium-sized buildings actually pick up trees if they're supposed to be doing that, because right now they're not.
Yeah.
So you might want to feed that back up the chain, but it's all going to go to hell at the first of the year if we don't have a solution in place that really works.
Yes, and like last year, when DPW has their policy on Christmas trees, which they will introduce, I will make sure the commission knows about it as soon as we can.
Okay, great.
All right.
Thank you.
Of course. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? All right, thank you so much.
Any other public comments or announcements? Moving then to the order of business. First items on the agenda are ABC and Public Safety Commission, and there has been a request by Grand Central to have sports betting application. And do we have someone here from Grand Central? I know I spoke with someone who thought he was going to be here. We did not have an ABC and Public Safety Committee meeting last month to discuss this, and but I did run it by several of the commissioners who have particularized expertise, and none of us, frankly, can come up with provisions that should be included in a settlement agreement reflective of an additional ability of a liquor licensee to have sports betting. It's going to happen. Those of us who don't think it's a good idea, that ship has sailed. And the question would be whether or not we need to protest their application in order to get some sort of agreement for additional terms to their settlement agreement that limit what they do and how they do it. And I frankly don't have any thoughts or ideas on that, and unless I hear something from the committee, my guess is we're just going to go by without making any decision at all on it. So, do I have any thoughts from fellow commissioners about this?
I will say, on behalf of Grand Central, I have spoken to other bid members and other community members, and I believe that the owner and caretaker of Grand Central has been a good business owner, so I'm glad that if it is the first in our district, it is with someone who is quite competent, and I think we'll be able to make money off of it in a responsible way, in diligence with the neighborhood partners.
And in addition, it seems like there may well be sort of a shakeout period where we discover things that really should be part of the settlement agreement that have to do with gambling, provided it's the same place that you have alcohol. But like I say, I can't think of anything off the top of my head that would make sense.
And this partner would, if I feel like if working with this operator, if there were concerns, they would respond to those concerns with or without a settlement agreement, but they're very open to community response.
So if I'm not hearing anything,
I would just say that I agree, because if DC is already going through with this, I don't see a reason that Adams Morgan should stand up and oppose it.
well, and I will say that, for example, one of the things that we put in settlement agreements uniformly throughout ANC 1C is a prohibition against pub crawls, because we had horrible experiences about 15, 20 years ago where, they wound up having porta potties lined up in alleyways coming off of 18th, slews of drunken people taking over the streets of 18th, and we decided that it was better to impose those particular activities on other neighborhoods if people were so interested in doing that.
Parking lots.
Yeah. So it doesn't seem to me that providing gambling is the same nature, particularly when at this point it's only one operator who's indicated it. We know that given the constant pressure between cost of rent and amount that you can get in through the door without over-serving, that this may well provide a reasonable basis for some of our licensees to be able to continue in existence. And since Adams Morgan, one of the reasons a lot of us live here is that it has a vibrant nightlife. I think that anything we can do to be of assistance to the licensees who are performing well is probably a good thing. So with that, and unless I have a motion from one of the commissioners, we'll move on to the next item. And I don't believe anyone is here from Columbia Station. Is that correct? They had initially contacted me and made a request to increase the capacity, the number of people who are allowed in Columbia Station, to reflect their move into the upstairs portion of the same building that they're currently located in, which previously had been occupied by a portion of Heaven and Hell. Heaven and Hell has been shut down for failure to pay a significant fine to ABRA, and it looks like it is not going to resurface, and the license may well just go away. But if he comes back with the appropriate documents, which I requested, we will at least consider whether to allow him to expand or to approve his expansion into the space upstairs. It's, for those of you who aren't aware, well, I guess it would be heaven technically. For those of you who aren't aware, there have been significant actions taken by the ANC over a prolonged period of time to deal with Heaven and Hell, which we had been advised by the police 3 years ago was the primary source of most of the enforcement issues that happen along 18th. Strangely enough, the same guy operates Columbia Station, about which we have never had any complaints that I'm aware. So I'm at least opening to consider that, but they have to get together, get the documents, and show us stuff, and apparently they're not doing that tonight. So, moving on to the BZA application for destination pet. It's another one that I wound up being the point person on, surprisingly.
I'll get everything else.
I know. Anyway, the current situation, and I'll outline what's going on, and if either the applicant or the neighbors want to talk about a little more and explain a little more, that's perfectly okay, but I'm trying to get us out the door at a reasonable hour tonight. Destination Pet is currently operating Life of Riley, and they have applied to add the next 2 storefronts south as both an animal hospital and an animal boarding facility, basically expanding both what is being offered at Life of Riley and the physical space. And they have to get a special exception from the Board of Zoning Adjustment in order to be able to do that. They have come to a committee meeting, they've come to the ANC last month. We got some input from neighbors about concerns principally about noise, but also potentially about odors from waste and odors, you know, from just the facility, and problems with potentially with rats using the waste product as a feeding source, but mostly about the noise that has interfered particularly with the condominiums that are located immediately behind Life of Riley. And we've had several meetings that have dealt with what the issues are, how to address them. There's currently a memo of understanding that has been generated by the Life of Riley people, by their attorney, to in order to come to an agreement with the adjacent neighbors on what are the appropriate ways to ensure that the noise is not a problem from expansion of the facility and expansion of the use. And unfortunately, that only came out this afternoon. People haven't really had adequate time to be able to say, yeah, that this looks good to us. They have a BZA hearing on this matter set for the 18th. And my suggestion was they bump it back a month. As anyone who's dealt with construction knows, particularly if you already have the property, you're already paying for the property, you want to go as quickly as possible. So because of the concerns about noise and the memo of understanding not having been signed off on yet, my proposal, and I've included it as a resolution here, is that ANC 1C take the position that the application for special exception should be denied on the basis that it would impose undue burdens on adjacent neighbors regarding noise and waste disposal unless and until a memo of understanding has been agreed upon by the parties or there are express requirements imposed by the Board of Zoning Adjustment to assure that the adjacent neighbors' quiet enjoyment of their residence will not be diminished by proposed usage. I didn't want to come out in opposition to this if it was at all possible, because frankly, I think this is probably a good thing for the neighborhood. There's a whole lot of dogs in this neighborhood who need services, and it's certainly not going to be as contributing to the 18th Street traffic as a large alcohol licensing establishment could be. The premises are currently a fairly quiet Ethiopian restaurant that also has a liquor license. At any rate, my proposal is to go ahead and take an action by the ANC that says that we don't agree with it because there hasn't been a memorandum of understanding, and if before the 18th they can't get to an agreement, then we will be opposing it at the hearing unless the hearing gets set over. And if we get to an agreement where the memorandum of understanding has been signed by the neighbors, then I will go in and say that the position of the ANC is that we were in a time frame crunch where we needed to act, if at all, at this meeting. We're not going to have another meeting before the 18th. And that we had concerns that were being expressed in the MOU that hadn't been reached yet. And if it comes and is reached so that both sides are happy with it, then in general, I think we're going to be happy with it, but we can't take an official action that's dependent on that. So I would move the resolution. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Yeah.
Do we have anything by either of the parties they'd like to talk about?
Eric DeVere, Land Use Council for Destination Pet. My client's here. We have been working with the neighbors. I think Commissioner Guthrie generally summarized it accurately. I would just say that the MOU is proposed to us, and our response came back to them today, which we generally agreed to. I think most of the terms we do need a little bit more time. I think we're confident, I'm not going to put words in anyone's mouth, that we can get there. And so, we're comfortable with what the ANC is suggesting. I think we're confident that we'll get there by the 18th, and I certainly plan to continue conversations. We have a sound engineer on board who issued a report. Unfortunately, because of the holiday, we met on Monday, and so now we didn't get the report till today, and understanding everyone needs to review it. So we're happy to keep working with everyone and hopefully get to a place where everyone is happy and Destination Pet can do this wonderful expansion.
Yeah.
Hi everyone, Kate Madigan. I live at 1806 Calvary. I'm here representing myself and my neighbors who are adjacent to the property. Appreciate the comments and appreciate the support. I will say generally we're very supportive of this business. I'm a customer of Life of Riley myself. Our units though are experiencing some issues with the current business, so we want to make sure this is done right. So we're appreciative that we can work with you on this. The time crunch is as it is because we just found out about it, but we appreciate that they're working with us on it. We just want to ensure that our quality of life and our value of our property is not decreased by an issue with noise and obviously smells and noise being the main thing. So we're supportive of what we've put together. We appreciate the support from the commission and thank you.
Questions?
So what is the noise, I guess, what type of noise solutions are there, or what ideas do both parties have in mind?
So I'll let my client speak more to the specifics, but essentially what we're looking at is there's the existing Life of Riley, which actually went before the ANC a few years ago, was approved, and my understanding is that most of the issues are kind of emanating where perhaps things weren't done correctly previously. Now, just to be clear, Destination Pet purchased it from the previous owner, I think back in the spring. So they're trying to remedy that situation, but also make sure that the new expansion is done with better noise attenuation. So, and I don't know if Rob wants to add the specifics, but things like better insulation, caulking, and noise attenuating ceiling tiles. These are all very kind of esoteric construction ideas, but there's a lot of actual hard materials that you can do to reinforce kind of the existing building. We do think it will be a major improvement in terms of the expansion over what's there, which is currently a bar restaurant and kind of a building that's very old and probably not up to current code. So it's kind of on two fronts here, and there's a lot of specifics that we've outlined in the pre-hearing statement that we submitted to the board. But there are a variety of materials you can actually add that will significantly, we think, decrease the issues with noise. And again, we hope to remedy kind of the current situation in the existing Life of Riley building.
Okay.
And the existing noise problem is that the people who are adjacent can actually regularly hear in their homes the dogs barking, making noise of whatever kind at any hour of the day or night.
So solutions, what were your solutions?
The issue with that is that unlike a bar or restaurant that has set hours, it's all the time, right? Because it's a boarding facility too. And we want to ensure that, and we're appreciative that they're looking to fix the solution that they purchased, right? The issue that they purchased, but beyond that, it's doing it right this time. And so part of the solution that we really like is to be able to walk through that, because we're not sound engineers, right? We're not construction managers and understand all this. We really wanted to get it done right so we don't have to retrofit again. Because when the original Life of Riley did this build out in 2016, they worked with the neighbors, with us, the same owners. And things just either didn't get done or what happened. So we don't want to be in the same position where things are promised and don't follow through, which is why we really want to go through this in a step-by-step process so that we understand what's happening and how it's all.
Yeah, and we had a sound engineer, again, just issue a report today, unfortunately, because of the time crunch. And he not only looked at the plans that we've proposed, but also made suggestions on what could be done to improve that. So, without reading through all the kind of boring, very detailed
So I guess
noise attenuation features, we have agreed to implement those features.
So I guess my question is what's the discrepancy with the MOU? I mean,
Well, the MOU, because it's been such a short time frame,
oh, so they just haven't.
you know,
actually
we've got neighbors there who are still out of town on business and haven't had a
so they
chance
still
to
have
review
to send
it.
yes.
And I will say the MOU just came about on Monday because the people in myself and the people in my building didn't hear about this until after it come to the PZT, already went towards the committee, right? So part of I think the failure here is not reaching out to the neighbors, so it's a time crunch now at this point. So I think that we need to look at the MOU. I got revisions back today, which I appreciate. I think that we need to look at those and really kind of walk through the considerations.
But I anticipate that they're going to be able to work out whatever remaining issues there are before the hearing. But, you know, you never know until you get people to sign off.
Yes,
So,
I mean, I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, but I think we are very close based on what we looked at in terms of what they proposed, so.
and the reason I put this together was that if we do not pass this, then we will not have any say before BZA if they can't come to an agreement.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm concerned about, is that I want to make sure that, you know, a reasonable process has happened and that our residential neighbors will be able to feel comfortable and confident as this goes forward.
And follow the waste disposal situation, what was the remedy for that?
Yeah, actually, I wasn't here the last ANC meeting, a colleague of mine was, but my understanding was we talked about a bear and rat-proof trash enclosure, which we agreed to and is in the BZA record as saying we agreed to. Part of this MOU that was also already in the BZA record is that Destination Pet has agreed to increase trash pickup to 2 times per week to try to alleviate any sort of buildup back there. And they will, and this is also in the BZA record, they will give employees training as to proper waste disposal, I believe is the third issue. So I do think that generally we're kind of in agreement, at least with the ANC and the neighbors, about kind of from the odor and waste perspective what we need to do.
Cool. Thank you.
I'm glad that you all are coming to a consensus or at least agreement. My only thing is, like, just in reading this, it just seems so negative.
That's why I didn't want to put it in, but we
Yeah.
have to put it in unless the hearing is put off till January. And they're not willing to put the meeting off till January, so.
I'm excited that you guys are expanding, and I think, you know, those vacant spots along that side of the street, like, I think I'm really glad that you all are coming into that, and I wouldn't want to, this whole process it's great to have the engagement with the neighbors, but I also wouldn't want this to dissuade anybody else from trying to come into those spaces in the future. So that's my only concern, is us, you know, like dissuading future tenants, because, you know, this is your, I think, 3rd meeting that you've come to, and it's a lot. So that's my only thing about this.
Yeah, my hesitancy with it is similar, and also that if you all are so close to it, I mean, I understand the point is that if we don't approve something like this, then we have no leverage at all. But I agree, this sounds it sounds opposing and negative, so it's just,
Yep.
yeah. After I think you all have done a really.
Well, it's, what I would say is that it's analogous to when we protest a liquor license. The protest language sounds pretty horrible, you know, adverse to peace, order, and quiet of the neighborhood.
Right.
But that is what's required in order to be able to stay at the table and get it complete. And if we were not able to do that, then it would fall just on the neighbors by themselves to go and deal with BZA if they can't come to an agreement.
So question, who's a part of the MOU? Is it KCA, us, the adjacent neighbors?
KCA, I don't believe KCA is planning to be on the agreement. There had been a suggestion that the ANC be on it, but it would not be effective at the hearing at the 18th, since we don't have the terms of the MOU for us to approve at this point. So the current thought is that it would be the adjacent neighbors and the business owner as the people who are signing the MOU.
Okay.
Because basically our situation is we're, as we frequently are in issues about either property or alcohol, we are being advocates for the neighbor residents and sort of maintaining the status of the case until it can be resolved, and once it's resolved, we sort of step back, so.
So, guess a question, if there is no signature to the MOU after or at
By the
hearing,
18th.
by the 18th,
My understanding
then what would
is that they're planning, if that's the case, they're planning to request a set-over at the BZA hearing to the next month and try and get it resolved before our next ANC meeting so that we can put forward something that's more positive. That would be in support of it, if they can get it done before our next meeting.
So if we pass this one and they don't agree on the MOU, it
Right.
will come back to us in January.
That's my understanding. I mean, we could wind up being in front of the BZA on the 18th.
The BZA, I don't know that we necessarily have to come back to you all, obviously we love your support.
Right.
You know, it kind of stands on its own, and, you know, again, Commissioner Guthrie has obviously agreed to come to the BZA hearing, so he can say whatever his opinion is at that moment in time. We're pretty confident that we won't even need to worry about that. I know that, you know, however you want to respond to that, but we're pretty confident that we can, you know, we're very close to the finish line, or we wouldn't even have we would have gone with the postponement, I think.
So are you in favor of this resolution?
That's a good question.
I don't think as an advocate.
I'm in favor of a negative resolution. I think it's a fair solution right now and compromise, and I think cooler heads have all prevailed here, and I think we'll get something done. I prefer that it's we are supportive subject to the MOU as opposed to we are against it subject to the MOU, but Commissioner Guthrie and I talked about that extensively, and he didn't feel comfortable with that. So, you know, I mean, I think it's a fair resolution. Obviously, we'd love for you all to support, but you know, the chips have fallen as they are, and part due to the time crunch with the holidays last week.
And it also may be that in January we could have a resolution, assuming everything gets settled, and that the MOU is in place, we can have a subsequent resolution that says the MOU is sufficient, that we now are approve of and recommend that the BZA do what has been asked. Whether or not they've already done something, we could still do something like that to make the record clear where we are and why we did what we did.
So my question for the adjacent neighbors, do you believe that you'll have enough time to do walkthroughs and be able to have enough time to competently sign the MOU before this time period?
I think so. I think that there are a few other people to talk through. I mean, obviously we just got it. I think that there is enough time. I would love the opportunity to be able to talk with the engineer about it, to actually understand the plans, right? This is not what I do for a living. But I think that we will have the time to do it, and I'm confident that we can get there because, again, I support the business. I just want it to be done right in the way that we don't need retrofit later.
I don't want to belabor this, but I am curious, would we not want to do some sort of positive statement? I mean, it sounds like both parties are very positive about the outcome for the 18th. So is there any reason why we wouldn't be more positive today?
And my impetus on that is that it would put the ball not in the people who in the neighbors'
Yeah.
court, and so that they have to rally and find more information about what this business is going to do regarding their sound and their trash. Whereas if it's in the negative, then it's in their court where they have to. At least that's how I would see it.
And I do think that, particularly that BZA is used to having issues come before it that have resolutions that need to be made by the parties and or the people who are most affected by it, and that they are quite understanding of the idea that sometimes it takes a little more time than you otherwise would have to get stuff done, but once it's done, they're fine with the process having gone on. And I just think that unless an MOU comes through, our position has got to be with the board that we're in opposition to it unless their order includes something that is sufficient to alleviate the noise concerns that have happened with the current situation, let alone an expansion of it. I just think that's a sort of more direct way to deal with it.
Okay.
Further thoughts from the public? Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm Brian Basile, I own Grand Central. That's all it said about me here.
We passed you by and it's not a problem, so.
I thought 8 o'clock was good, but I just wanted to say, I know it's a lot of questions in the city about the whole sports wagering thing.
Say none here.
If anyone has any questions, I don't want to move backwards, I know how this meeting is going. Any questions, Ray?
No?
No?
Take yes for an answer.
Absolutely. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Eric.
I just want to speak in support of what Commissioner Wright said. I strongly agree with what she said about not discouraging. It's not just this business, which I think is a great business and that we want to welcome their expansion to Adams Morgan, but it's like making sure Adams Morgan is attractive to non-alcohol businesses. There are a lot of empty spots along 18, and so I just, my concern when I read this, I mean, your explanation of the scheduling issues and stuff is very persuasive, but I found this resolution to sound quite negative, and I wonder why it wouldn't be possible to add another whereas to something to the effect of, whereas we welcome the establishment of non-alcohol related businesses in Adams Morgan and so on. Something that made it I mean, what Commissioner Bowles said about, where does it put the ball in whose court and so on. But as it's written now, it's not quite neutral. It's pretty negative. Recognizing what you said about the possibility of some new version in January if the meeting is postponed. But I do think we need to encourage the opening of businesses in Adams Morgan, given the non-alcohol related businesses in Adams Morgan. And I'm sure that there are issues with the immediate neighbors. As a neighbor that's a little more distant, I'm much more concerned about the noise that'll come from a sports betting parlor, or from allowing the operator of Heaven and Hell to essentially expand under another name in that space. I think that will probably be noisier than the dog kennel. So I would just urge you to adopt, if possible, to adjust the resolution to make it a little more neutral about this particular business.
I'm Clem Cybra. I live with Kate. I understand the subject of what you're talking about. Is it too negative or not? Can I just clarify? We want this to get fixed out. As she said, we use Lake O'Reilly. The distance between their building and the start of ours and right where our bedroom is that far, from here to here. We're just trying not to be woken up most mornings at 7:20 by a cacophony of dogs going, and there's ways to work it out. So I understand your point, sir, when you're saying you you're not concerned about the noise, you don't live 5 feet away, I understand. It's not promoting the business, we're just trying to work out a living issue, that's all.
And
We're asking for the support and Ted's been kind, and we'll find a way to work it out.
And I do think, I agree that we don't want to have a perception of Adams Morgan as not being interested in or willing to accommodate new businesses. But I think that, in the first place, I would doubt that this gets promulgated beyond Board of Zoning adjustment. I mean, it could be that someone picks this up and sensationalizes it, in which case they're not doing good journalism. But the point of this is more a procedural position because, as with a protest case, I don't know if you remember the Revelers Hour protest, that I hate to think how many emails I got about how horrible we were being to the Revelers Hour people who had operated a wonderful facility that everyone in the neighborhood loves. How dare you protest? When the only reason for the protest was get to an agreement that we have time constraints and we have to do them within a certain period of time. And this is directed toward the limited position of if there is no MOU in place in time for the December 18th meeting. That's all that this is really directed toward. That's the only reason it's there. It has to articulate what our concerns are in specificity, or the board will not consider them. And we want them considered if they're not to a point of a memorandum of understanding. So it's more of a sort of tactical lawyerese reason that this is written in a negative tone, in that it will not be operative if we can come to an MOU. It basically is not going to be a problem if there's going to be an MOU.
Well, I think, I'm not a lawyer, you are, I know. So I think the resolves part of it satisfies the function that you need. I'm just asking whether another whereas statement to soften the idea that we like this kind of business, we welcome non-alcohol businesses, would be a little less negative. I recognize that your plan, it sounds like a good plan to me. But when I read this, as somebody completely fresh to it, when I walked in, I said, wow, this is pretty negative. And that's, Commissioner Wright, I think Commissioner Cooley said basically the same thing.
Yeah.
I think they're right on in terms of what my view is.
But the other point is that BZA does not have, our saying that we like this kind of business is not part of BZA's jurisdictional function. They have to determine, if they actually have to determine something, they have to determine whether the special exception should be granted. The special exception can only be granted if the proposal sufficiently addresses the issues that are raised in this resolution. That is the legal issue that's going to be before them. It's not whether or not we, in general, like this business, like businesses like this. That's got nothing to do with it. That's not the area that they get to talk about or get to decide on. So just as when you have a protest of a liquor license, it's not whether or not this is someone who we believe will be a good operator and will bring a good business to the neighborhood. It's whether we are in a position procedurally to address the legitimate concerns of the neighbors in an agreement to resolve the problem.
Well, Ted, I recognize what you're saying, and that's fine, but I think when there was a discussion about the small bodegas that have liquor license, it was kind of, that was not the position that was taken. That it was rather like to let the things go because we're not going to protest these businesses. So, I think that that's not the story I heard when there was a discussion about the bodegas that did not, where the owner-operators did not speak English, and we really didn't want to be going in and harassing their businesses and so on, which I agreed with completely. But, and here, I just note that on the issue of Grand Central and Columbia Station, the ANC is taking no action whatsoever. And to me, this
Now, just to be clear, we're not taking any action on Columbia Station because no action has been put forth in the sense that they have to put in an application and it becomes subject to a protest process.
Okay.
He tried to obviate that by getting our agreement, which I said we would at least consider if he provided us with the facts, which he didn't. So since he has not provided us with the facts that would be necessary to make a decision, we made no decision. We made no decision on Grand Central because we don't have any articulable basis for making any changes in the settlement agreement that exists with Grand Central on the basis of their application for the gambling. So it's a different parsing, and I understand where you're coming from, and certainly every time I get the opportunity to talk to media, I make quite clear that we're more than willing to have businesses come in. The real problem, and the reason that we've got vacant storefronts, is we've got rents that are too damn high for anyone but liquor establishments to afford. That's the problem.
Can I just make one final suggestion in the interest of pragmatism? Also, that was a beautiful statement, but perhaps just that the ANC votes to take no position. So instead of saying should be denied, you just say we take no position on the basis that it would impose, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, unless the MOU is agreed to. So then you have your issues and concerns
Except
stated
that
in writing.
if we can't get an MOU, I would definitely oppose the application proceeding without some provision. Yeah. It's one of those where, yeah, we'll have a settlement agreement, and I'm sure we'll come to an agreement because we're both reasonable people, but at any rate, yeah?
Sorry, can I just add that I agree that I think the scariest thing for new tenants coming to the neighborhood is astronomical prices. I think that Adams Morgan is a great place. People want to be here. I don't think that, the scary language of this resolution is going to scare people off very much. And also, if I had to wake up really early in the morning to dogs barking, I'd be very upset about that. And I wouldn't want to, I don't feel confident just saying, yeah, probably we're going to come to an agreement, so we don't need to take any action. I think it's safer to just take the action and accept this resolution. I'm in support of the resolution. I'm in support of better living conditions, and I think that that's the issue at hand, not whether or not tenants are going to come into Adams Morgan.
Let's move to a vote. All those in favor of the resolution indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? One opposed, and any abstentions? So the motion passes 5-0. It's 5-1 to 0. Thank you. Moving then to, and you folks don't have to stay if you come for that part. Just please try and be quiet as you leave and recognize that you need to get pretty far down the hall before you start talking. Moving then to Public Services and Environment. We have Jubilee Jumpstart Grant application.
Yeah. So this was given to us. We have an application. It is for $2,057.18. It is essentially a line item grant that relates to buying car trolleys for children's passenger trolleys. So there is a program, Jubilee Jumpstart, that is in within 1C, and they have they have a sizable percentage of their youth that attend the program that live in 1C, and they are asking for us to use to help purchase some of their equipment to better serve the kids of Adams Morgan. Essentially, well, what I learned from their grant application was that unlike many daycare facilities, they have to have outside hours, And this can be a really interesting like timetable when you have six spots for kids to sit in, and you have however many kids, and they have to be out for a certain amount of time, and it's required by law. And so that's one of the reasons why they're interested in having us support and be a supporter of an additional trolley. It will help them with their efficiency, and they walk all around the neighborhood during the day. I'm sure if you probably see them. There is also an adjuster that we're purchasing and sponsoring as well, and that's an infant seat, soft seat. So the original buggy, that's what they're called, buggies, sorry, not trailers or whatever I was previously saying. Oh my gosh. The fat tire bye-bye buggy with gray seat pads, and then the bye-bye buggy infant soft seat, as well as the buggy cover. And that is to put over the buggy so it can still be stored outside. The infant soft seat is, from what I got out of the conversation, is so infants could sit in the passenger seat, whereas the buggy typically holds like anyone who's not an infant to. There we go. I'm not. I'm pretty excited about this. They said that they would be interested in putting our names on the buggy, like sponsored by ANC.
I don't know if that's allowed. We'll talk about that later.
So I have a question. This came out of committee, right? With the
Yes.
recommendation to pay?
It did.
My question was, under our new guidelines, is this within the amounts? Because we had like 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 grants?
4,000.
4,000?
Yeah.
So this is just over 2,000. How do we deal with something that is over the 2,000 grant? Does there have to be, we used to have a special motion.
Well, we increased our grant limit to 4,000, so in my mind, it feels like we would just, I mean, it seems.
Since it's less than 4,000?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then what we're suggesting to people is that they apply at the $1,000, $2,000, or $4,000 level. But what what this precedent would set is that they're not applying for 4,000 and then are trying to figure out what to use the other.
Right.
They're applying for a very specific amount, and to me, this type of like budget line item feels like a really good use of our grant dollars, because it's just an expense that they don't have to do. They'll literally take that check and apply. So
Good.
that would be my sense, and it's within the 4,000.
And I can give some facts on their program membership or enrollment, sorry. So 30 of the 49 students live in Ward 1. Of those 30, 20 live in 1C. And their center is in John's district, or Michaela's district. Yeah, that's what I got from that.
And we have previously given them grants in the past,
We bought
but
the
we haven't,
refrigerator.
but we haven't done it within the last year.
Correct.
Is that correct?
The grant process was quite cumbersome. It was too cumbersome of a process for them.
Okay.
So I would like to move this forward, and for us to grant or to approve their grants for $2,057.18.
Okay. It doesn't need a motion because it comes from committee with a recommendation to pass. Do we have anyone in the audience who wants to speak to this at all? Any questions from any of the other commissioners about it? Then let's move to a vote. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I'm gonna abstain.
Okay, so it's 5-0 to 1. Moving then to the resolution opposing flavored tobacco products.
Yes. So this was also moved from committee, 3-0. We have been asked by an anti-tobacco and a youth league to help spread the message that flavored smoking, specifically flavored electronic smoking devices, hook kids and they get them on the tobacco path. There's numerous statistics within this resolution. I specifically, I like this bill, flavored products, looking at big tobacco. I know there's a lot of people that have seen, obviously the people are dying from e-cigarettes, but there's far other more strategic tactics of producing a longevity of a market. And one of the biggest ways is advertising to children. And one of the easiest ways of doing that is having all types of crazy fun flavors that are good for that market to adults, but also market specifically to children. So this bill, in its current form, will ban the flavored electronic smoking devices. So that would be the e-cigarettes such as Juul that have the different flavors. However, I have been made aware that this bill will most likely be amended to ban all flavored tobacco products. So that would include like your Swisher wraps and your Swedish things
So this
like
would,
that.
this would preclude people who are legitimately able to purchase Juuls not to be able to purchase them?
It bans Juuls. They won't be the flavored ones. They won't be permitted to be for sale within the district.
Because it's already, they're already precluded from being sold to those under a certain age.
Oh, definitely. So this would make it illegal for anyone, for any business owner to sell those products.
But then
within
this would
the district.
also, if it is expanded to all tobacco products, this would also shut down like all hookah places.
So there is a carve out. This bill doesn't specifically talk about hookah, but there is a carve out in the markups that hookah is still, hookah and cigar bars have not taken the hit the same way that these types of, so really what this bill is marketed towards is like the big tobacco,
Right.
not hookah bars or cigar bars.
But if it's tobacco, then, I mean, hookah is tobacco.
So it depends on how they define tobacco, and each state and jurisdiction defines tobacco in numerous ways. And actually, a really popular concept is defining what e-cigarettes is. And you look through all throughout the country, and even through cities, they'll define what e-cigarettes are. Well, they're also trying to define what flavored products are, so they could hopefully ban them. But one of the biggest issues, and this has been like a big issue for the Obama administration, tried to get rid of it. Recently, Donald Trump tried to get rid of it. The only thing I think that I've probably ever been in support of with that. But yeah, it is, there's numerous, the American Cancer Society, the American Heart Association, the American Lung Association, Tobacco Free Coalition, the DC Tobacco Free Coalition, they're the ones who reached out to us, as well as the Campaign for Tobacco and Free Kids. Councilmember Brianna Doe has sponsored the bill, as well as numerous other members, and there are numerous other ANC commissions that are passing this. And they're trying to show support, and I think it's mostly for the chairperson as well as for our at-large members, because big tobacco will definitely be influencing this bill. So we need to support our council members and let them know that they have the support and that we don't want the next generation to get hooked on this harmful substance, which has been provenly harmful and is provenly deceptive. That's kind of like the token issue. They've consistently been provenly deceptive in all hallmarks of science and advertising.
Well, I guess my real problem, speaking on behalf of an absent commissioner, is that those who are of an age and who make the decision that they would prefer an electronic product and that they like one that has a flavor, I have a hard time seeing why we should be not allowing them to do that on the basis that the flavored that is sold illegally to minors encourages minors to, you know, and it's sort of like, yeah, you don't want kids smoking, so does that mean that adults should be prohibited from buying any cigarettes in the district? That I have some problems with that as a concept, and I guess I have sort of a philosophical bent toward not having ANC resolutions that are directed toward specific legislative proposals that don't seem to have a particular impact on our neighborhood. But that's, you know, something that I understand that other people have a different philosophy on. But I have a real hard time saying that no flavored e-smoking devices should be allowed when, you know, adults are currently able to do it, and what do you want them to do? Go over to Virginia to buy them?
Yeah. Hopefully, yeah. Okay.
No, but, you know, why should those who are adults who make that decision for themselves, knowing the risks, particularly in light of the risks that have recently come up with not just popcorn lung, but some sort of other horrible stuff that comes from the oil that was being used. And I think that was not even in tobacco products. Some of that was in marijuana products. Yeah. But I'm not sure that this is an appropriate method to curtailing. I get why they want to. You know, it's sort of like selling candy cigarettes encourages kids to smoke later, supposedly, but
yeah.
Except this is tobacco.
I will say there is somewhat of a libertarian argument to be made, like, let yourself do with what you will. I will also counter with that, we don't necessarily know the effects of what secondhand vape smoke is. We barely know the effects of what secondhand smoke is. I mean, that kind of came out within like the past 20 years. So I would say, this is Big Tobacco's most crucial issue. They don't care about raising the age limit. That's not to protect kids. That's a facade. Their biggest moneymaker is on these flavored tobacco products, so they can get kids hooked and prolonged on to the future with it. And I think that we should be able to give our council members cover on this, because they're going to get flack for it. And there's a sizable, there's 2 schools, 2 elementary schools and 1 middle school, charter schools, and we have numerous tobacco selling stores along 18th Street as well as Columbia that these kids will walk by. A lot of them, I mean, there's in the window for a few of our store owners, and I know this will hurt businesses. It will. It will eliminate an entire market, and especially if they pass it through the entire country. But I think that that's something that we should be in favor of. We should be in favor of kicking tobacco to the side. There are so many other alternatives, and I feel like they have sold this narrative that vaping is so much more healthy, and it's not. Or we don't know. It looks like it's not. But they don't want you to know, and that's kind of the biggest thing. They don't want you to know the science behind flavored tobaccos. They don't want you to know. I mean, on every single issue, they are always dragging their feet. So I would like to pass this.
And this came out of committee, so it doesn't need a second.
Does not.
Do we have any other discussion, expression of concerns? Then let's move to a vote. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
How about raising your hand so I've got to count? 1, 2, 3, 4. Those opposed indicate by saying no. No. Those in abstention? Okay, so it's 4 to 1 to 1. The motion passes. ANC 1C contract for audio visual services.
Yeah, so I'm going to pass this one over to Commissioner Pooley. She is the one who has been the lead on our audio-visual services negotiations.
So because this didn't come out of committee, do we need to?
There needs to be a motion here.
Okay, so.
It was duly noted, so that we don't need a preliminary motion.
I thought we did pass it.
I'm sorry, it did come out of committee, so we're good.
So was it
Yes.
recommended to
Yes.
approve?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes,
cool.
I'm sorry.
Just the last one was on.
So some of you who are regulars might have is that for the past couple months, we've had a guest here, Gordon, who has been providing AV services for us, which enables us to live stream. I think we had close to 500, 600 views of our first stream, and it's just a great way to provide documentation and let people who can't physically be here in the room with us still partake in the conversation. So we put together this contract, or Gordon actually put together, thank you Gordon, and it just formalizes our arrangement so we don't have to write a check every month. The funding for this was approved in our FY 2020 budget, and it's been working well, and we're excited to finally have reliable Wi-Fi, and that's pretty much all I'll say about it. I feel good about it,
and this is already in the budget going forward.
It's already in the budget going forward. Yeah, I mean, I could talk through some of we purchased all of the equipment. Gordon maintains it for us. That's included in here. It's all labeled with our information on it. Should we end the agreement, the equipment will come back to us. There's an opportunity to have our committee meetings included in this contract. Gordon also maintains our YouTube page and uploads everything. I mean, it's
cool. Great. Any thoughts from the public?
It's very helpful.
Any thoughts from commissioners?
Thanks, Bridget, for, it wasn't like Gordon just sent over the agreement. There was back and forth, so that was good. Thank you for doing that.
Okay, let's move to a vote. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? A motion passes 6-0. 0. Oh, okay. And 12. Today's the 4th?
Yeah, we're here, right?
Okay, good. Thank you. Moving then to the last item on the agenda, resolution in support of ATU Local 689 Transerve striking workers, and that did not come out of committee, is that correct?
It did not.
Okay, so but it was appropriately noticed so that you need to put it in the form of a motion and get a second. Okay?
Okay. So right now?
Yeah.
Okay, so can we get a a second, on adding this, sorry, am I doing this correctly?
You'd like to move that the resolution, what's it titled?
But it's already on the agenda though.
I did give notice.
Yeah, it's on the notice, so we don't have to add it to the agenda, but we do have to have a motion a motion to approve the resolution.
Oh, I see, okay, okay, so, yeah, motion to approve this resolution, in support of ATU Local 689 Transit striking workers. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Um,
And you just want to give sort of a update of what it is?
Yeah, so I understand that this was brought up at our last month's ANC meeting. I wasn't here because I was traveling for work, but I'm glad to be talking about this today. I wanted to support these workers back in November when they started, because they started going on strike on October 24th. But here we are today, and it's been day 41, I believe, of their strike, and they're still fighting. So the background is that these workers are working at Cinderbed Road facility, which is in Virginia. But this is a WMATA, part of the WMATA system, and they drive WMATA buses and all that. So WMATA recently, last October of 2018, decided to privatize this bus garage and hand it over to Transdev, which is a French company. And the workers decided to vote to be in the union of ATU, since they had to redo that since they weren't in WMATA anymore. And then Transdev had to agree to take part in negotiations, which started February of this year. In October, TransDev decided they were going to abandon negotiations, and so thus started the strike on the 24th of October. And basically, these workers are very upset with TransDev because they would be paid $12 less than WMATA workers who are doing the same exact work for more pay. They have no actual retirement plan. I mean, they have a retirement plan, but it's really not good. I wouldn't want it, so. And it's also not as good as the WMATA plan. And they have a different health insurance now, which would give them a $6,000 deductible. But since they went on strike, TransDev actually stripped them of healthcare completely. So none of them have healthcare to this day. They just got a mediator and started mediation today, but they're still on strike. So I think, I know that we had just spoken about what is the significance of ANC voting on matters that, aren't directly involved or impact our community. So I would argue that, this is part of WMATA. WMATA made a decision to contract out their bus drivers to a private company that has been known for years to, first of all, bust unions, secondly, end strikes forcibly, and they have just been bad actors everywhere. I mean, I'm from Long Island. They came to Long Island when I was like, 12 or something, and it was a horrible mess for our bus system. Just this March, they're still in transit. They decided they're going to go on strike. I know that in other cities that ATU also represents workers, they're going on strike too. TransDev is not a great company, and here we have WMATA privatizing public transport, which should be public. And this does affect workers who live in DC, in Maryland, in Virginia, who are now going to make less money. There are single parents that don't have health insurance right now. I don't think that an ANC, which is part of the DC government, should stand by while WMATA just subcontracts their workers, doesn't pay attention to what the public or their workers are asking for, and just, we don't know if they're going to privatize even more of their operations. We have no idea. They might be just starting in Virginia and move quickly through the whole region. Who knows? So I think that this is really egregious, what they're doing here, and I think that it's the responsibility of elected officials in the city, even if it's ANC, to take a stand and be against, the actions that WMATA has taken and, the lack of actions that they have taken. So that is my position. I can answer any questions about that.
Well, I would say that although I'm not sure what how the great weight applies to activities of a governmental agency that is operating about the particular issue exclusively in another jurisdiction, I'm not sure that there is any great impact. There's certainly no great weight that's required as far as Virginia is concerned from an ANC's perspective. But one of the things that I've been concerned about that does have a direct impact on this neighborhood is the circulator system, which is on a similar level being operated differently from WMATA in the sense that they don't pay their operators as much. They contract out the repair and maintenance of the vehicles separately from WMATA, and it's another one of the attempts to privatize that winds up not necessarily saving money for government, but making money for some private entity. And I have some philosophical concerns with that. I do think that WMATA, since it operates as a regional government entity, if it is doing things that are bad, we can certainly comment on our disagreement with their way of implementing policy that may not directly affect this neighborhood, but certainly has long-term potential consequences for the neighborhood. The real problem is that WMATA, in my experience, is very hard to get a hold of. They don't put any information about their board on their website. They don't have any contact us information. which I think reflects the fact that they don't care what we say. But, but I think I would be inclined to support this simply because I do agree that it's bad policy on WMATA's part to be doing what they're doing. I'm not sure that our small voice will have any impact, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't raise our voice.
In response, I forgot to mention that I did actually send this resolution around to many ANC commissioners. I know that 2F, they're having a meeting tonight as well, and they're also considering this resolution. And it was my goal to get as many ANCs as possible to pass something like this so that it wouldn't just be a small voice. And I do know that WMATA is hard to get a hold of. Thankfully, we do have contacts that we can, that ATU and other unions have been contacting, and we've been doing that work. As for the jurisdiction issue, I think, yeah, it's in the regional, WMATA operation. So I think just because in Virginia, I don't think that's a huge issue. And on the circulator, I agree. I would be very happy to also craft a resolution on circulator, but that's another issue. So I can take that up. But yes, I did forget about the talking to other ANCs, so thanks for reminding me.
Any other questions by commissioners? Thoughts, comments? Public? Yeah?
I just had wholeheartedly support this resolution and then also the one for this week.
Awesome. I agree. I think it's very important.
Moving then to a vote. All those in favor of the resolution, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes 6-0 to 0. Before folks take off, please see me if you had a particular resolution go through so that I can make sure I know who to send it to. And I'd take a motion to adjourn.
Second, yeah.
And I think we are all in agreement. Out the door before 9, yes.